The judge had barely finished speaking when my sister stood beside my ex-husband and smiled at me. "I'm sorry," Rachel whispered. But she didn't look sorry. She looked relieved. For 6 months, I had been fighting Daniel in court over the house, our finances, and custody of our daughter, Lily. Daniel had told the court that I was irresponsible, that I couldn't afford the house, that Lily would have a better life with him. Most of it was a lie, but the worst part wasn't Daniel. It was Rachel. My own sister had agreed to testify against me. She told the judge that I had always struggled with responsibility. She said Daniel was more stable. She even claimed I had once told her I wanted to sell the house and disappear. I stared at her from across the courtroom. I couldn't believe she was doing this. Rachel and I had grown up sharing everything. We shared a bedroom when we were children. We shared secrets under our blankets after our parents went to sleep. When I got my first job, she was the first person I called. When she had her first child, I was there before anyone else. I had babysat her children countless times. I had helped her when she and her husband struggled financially. When our grandmother died, Rachel and I had cried together in the same cemetery. That was why her testimony hurt more than anything Daniel could have said. Daniel was my ex. I expected him to fight me. But Rachel was my sister. I never expected her to stand beside him. The judge looked over the documents. "Ms. Harper, based on the evidence currently presented, the property dispute cannot be resolved today." My attorney leaned toward me. "Stay calm." I nodded. The judge continued. "Until ownership is fully reviewed, the temporary order will remain in place." I felt my stomach drop. The house. My house. The house my grandmother had left to me before I ever met Daniel. The house where Lily had taken her first steps. The house where I had painted her bedroom pink. The house where my mother had spent her final Christmas. I was being ordered to leave. Daniel's attorney gathered his papers. Daniel looked at me. There wasn't even a hint of regret in his eyes. He looked victorious. Then Rachel approached me. "You'll understand someday," she whispered. I stared at her. "No, Rachel." She frowned. "I understand today." Her expression hardened. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." I laughed quietly. "You testified against me. Because I told the truth." "No." I looked directly into her eyes. "You told his version of the truth." She shook her head. "You've always been stubborn. And you've always been afraid to stand up to people." Her face changed. For a second, I saw the sister I remembered. Then she turned away. Daniel walked past us. His lawyer whispered something into his ear. I watched them leave the courtroom together. My attorney placed a hand on my shoulder. "We'll appeal the property decision." I nodded. But inside, I was numb. Outside the courthouse, the afternoon sun was bright. People were walking past with coffee cups and briefcases, laughing and talking as if the world hadn't just collapsed around me. I stood on the courthouse steps holding a folder containing my life. My attorney asked, "Do you have somewhere to stay tonight?" "Yes." "Good." I looked at him. "How long will this take?" "I can't promise." That was the hardest answer, because uncertainty was worse than losing. If someone told me I had lost my house forever, at least I would know what I was fighting. But this was different. I was being forced out temporarily while someone else tried to take what belonged to me. I drove home slowly. Lily was staying with a friend. I didn't want her to see me packing. When I entered the house, everything looked normal. Her backpack was beside the stairs. Her shoes were near the couch. A drawing she had made at school was still attached to the refrigerator. I walked into her bedroom. On the wall were the height marks I had drawn every birthday. Age 4. Age 5. Age 6. Age 7. She was 8 now. I touched the last mark. My eyes filled with tears. I whispered, "I won't let them take this from you." That evening, I packed only what I needed. Clothes. Important documents. Family photographs. Lily's favorite stuffed animal. My grandmother's jewelry. I left almost everything else. Before closing the front door, I looked back. I had no idea whether I would ever sleep in that house again. I locked the door. Then I drove away. For the next 3 weeks, I lived in a small guest room at my friend Nora's house. She never asked too many questions. She simply gave me a key and said, "Stay as long as you need." Every morning, I went to work. Every afternoon, I picked Lily up from school. Every evening, I worked with my attorney. The court battle became exhausting. Daniel kept insisting the house should be divided because he had contributed to renovations. That part was true. He had paid for some repairs. But the house itself had been mine before our marriage. My grandmother had transferred it to me legally. Daniel knew that. Rachel knew that. Yet Rachel still testified that Daniel had built the family home. I couldn't understand why. Then one afternoon, my attorney called. We found something. What? Rachel's testimony isn't the only problem. My heart began beating faster. What did you find? Financial records. What kind? Payments. From whom? He paused. Daniel. I sat down. To Rachel? Yes. How much? $25,000. For several seconds, I couldn't speak. My attorney continued. We're still verifying everything. I stared at the wall. Suddenly, Rachel's behavior made sense. The strange phone calls. The way she avoided looking at me. The confidence she had shown in court. The way she had insisted Daniel was the better parent. She hadn't simply chosen his side. She had something to gain. That evening, I called Rachel. She answered immediately. What do you want? I was stunned by her tone. Did Daniel give you money? Silence. What are you talking about? $25,000. That was a loan. A loan? Yes. For what? My husband needed money. From my ex-husband? He offered. Why would he offer you money? I don't know. You don't know? She became defensive. Why are you interrogating me? Because you testified against me. I told the truth. Then why did you need Daniel's money? She hung up. I sat there staring at my phone. Nora came into the room. What happened? My sister. She understood immediately. You think she lied? I know she did. I opened the financial documents my attorney had sent. There were more transfers. Not just one. Several. Different amounts. Different dates. Some went to Rachel's husband. Others went to an account connected to a business they owned. My hands began shaking. This wasn't an accident. It was a plan. Daniel had been preparing for the court battle long before I knew about it. And Rachel had been helping him. The next morning, my attorney filed the financial evidence. The court ordered a review. Daniel's lawyer immediately objected. But the documents spoke for themselves. Then something unexpected happened. The judge asked for Rachel's testimony to be reviewed. Every statement. Every claim. Every accusation. And suddenly, the story began falling apart. Rachel had said I wanted to sell the house. There was no evidence. She had said I had asked Daniel for money. Bank records proved otherwise. She had said I was an irresponsible parent. School records showed I had attended every parent meeting, every medical appointment, and every school event. She had said Daniel paid the majority of the household expenses. The records showed that I had paid nearly 60%. One lie after another began collapsing. And I realized something. Rachel had thought I would be too heartbroken to fight. Daniel had thought I would be too exhausted to look at the numbers. They were both wrong. Because they had forgotten one thing. I had spent years keeping every receipt, every contract, every bank statement, every piece of evidence. They thought they were taking my house. But they had accidentally left a trail leading straight back to the truth. The more my attorney uncovered, the worse the situation became for Daniel and Rachel. There were emails between them. At first, they looked harmless. Then I read them carefully. Rachel had written, "She won't fight if we make her feel like everyone is against her." Daniel replied, "That's the plan. Once she agrees to sell, everything becomes easier." I read the sentence twice. My hands went cold. They hadn't simply wanted the house. They had wanted me to give up. They wanted me exhausted. They wanted me isolated. They wanted me to believe that nobody was on my side. And Rachel knew exactly which buttons to push because she was my sister. She knew what I feared. She knew what hurt me. She knew how much I loved Lily. And she used all of it. I gave the emails to my attorney. He looked at them and said, "This changes things." The following hearing was completely different. Daniel arrived confident. Rachel came with him. But this time, neither of them looked at me. My attorney presented the financial records first. Then the emails. Then the property documents. Then the messages between Rachel and me. One by one, the evidence contradicted their story. The judge listened quietly. Finally, he looked at Daniel. "Mr. Carter, did you authorize these payments?" Daniel's attorney whispered something to him. Daniel swallowed. "Yes." "And why were they made?" "They were loans." "To your wife's sister?" "Yes." The judge looked at Rachel. "Did you disclose these payments when you testified?" Rachel's face turned pale. "No." "Why not?" She looked at Daniel, then at me. "I didn't think they were relevant." The judge's expression hardened. "They became relevant when you testified against your sister regarding her financial character." Rachel lowered her head. I sat quietly. I didn't feel victorious. I felt exhausted. The judge continued. "Your testimony is now being treated with significant caution. Then he turned to the property documents. Based on the original deed and the evidence submitted, the court finds that the property was acquired by Ms. Harper before the marriage. My heart stopped. He continued, Mr. Carter's financial contribution to renovations does not establish ownership. I looked at my attorney. He smiled. The judge removed the temporary restriction. The house was mine. Legally. Completely. Daniel had lost. But the judge wasn't finished. He ordered a further investigation into the financial transfers. The room became silent. Daniel looked at me. For the first time since the divorce began, I saw fear in his eyes. After the hearing, he approached me. Can we talk? I shook my head. Not here. Please. You should have thought about talking before you lied. I didn't lie. I looked at him. Then why did you need Rachel to lie for you? He had no answer. Rachel walked toward us. Emma. I held up my hand. Don't. She stopped. You betrayed me. I know. You stood in court and told strangers that I was a bad mother. I was scared. So was I. She started crying. I thought you were going to take everything. I never wanted anything from you. You had everything. I stared at her. You had my trust. She looked down. And you sold it. She didn't deny it. I walked away. When I returned to my house that evening, I stood outside for several minutes before opening the door. The house smelled exactly the same. I walked inside. Nothing had changed. Lily's shoes were still in the hallway. Her drawings were still on the refrigerator. My grandmother's clock was still ticking above the fireplace. I touched the wall. I was home. A few minutes later, Lily came running through the door. Mom. I knelt down. She jumped into my arms. Are we staying here? I hugged her tightly. Yes. Forever. I smiled. That's the plan. She laughed. Then she ran upstairs. I stood in the hallway listening to her footsteps. For the first time in months, I felt the weight in my chest disappear. But the story wasn't over. The financial